Time's up, Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Paul also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott!
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome back to Saturday Night Drive-In, where we take a break from the week and enjoy good movies, because that's what most of the time movies. Once in a while, we get a stinker, or Jed and I agree unanimously that we hate it with all the passion of 1,000 suns. But not this week. No, this week, I chose this week's movie specifically to wash the taste of stink out of our mouths from true horror that has been put on the silver screen. Before that, Jed, I did it. I got the intro done.
You did. You managed to get all the way through it. It seemed intentional, even. Like any improv you did was slipped in perfectly. Because I think that last line there was probably improv. Am I right?
Everything's improv. You know,
the stank out of our mouths.
You know, it's all improv. I don't plan this shit. It's off the riff.
Well, you did it beautifully. You did it beautifully.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I have no idea what you're talking about. There's no relevant reason why we should talk about this movie. None whatsoever. But as always, I'm excited to talk about a great film, and I absolutely adore this film. There are narrative issues with it, though, and I imagine I'm going to get dogpiled for some of my takes when it comes to that. This is my favorite Marvel movie, but I don't think it is necessarily the best written Marvel movie. It's one of the most unpopular ones, but I think Thor 1 might be one of the most solid scripts.
Well, also, Thor 1 has the benefit of being directed by the great Kenneth Branagh.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't simp much for directors, but I love Branagh. I love Branagh, just about anything he does. But so here we go. We have actual guests this week. You know, it's not just the ginger and the Jew. We've got guests. We've got Dom H returning again. How you doing, Dom?
Awesome. Yeah, pretty good. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it was great to see this movie again. You know, it's probably my second favorite superhero movie. I love The Dark Knight the best, but this one's second.
I'm a heretic. I don't like the Nolan Dark Knight movies. I don't like grounded Batman. I like Batman from the comics. I don't like.
All right, important question though: are they better than BVS?
Well,
yes.
In your opinion.
Yeah. They're apples and oranges. I mean, BVS is its own kind of shit show.
Come on, that was such a layup I gave you there. Just
I'm not gonna
say BVS is trash, and then we'd be like, all right, we can respect your opinion. Then
I'm not going to satisfy people just to look good. I am going to speak my truths.
Your truth is BVS and Batman and Dark Knight. You can't answer which one's probably better. That's your truth.
Come on, Adam.
That there's no truth?
That's no
A
way.
non-answer is truth?
What are you, Denmark?
Easy to say. Just say yes.
What are you, Denmark? It's a very Swiss answer.
No, I don't like any of them. That's my answer. I really
That's
don't
a
like
political
any of them.
answer.
No, shut up. Anyway, Drew, how you doing, man? Welcome to first time on Drive-In. How you doing?
Oh, awesome. No, happy to be here. This is pretty awesome. I'm watching a lot more movies, a lot more physical media. Just started the Physical Media Warriors channel. So that's on YouTube now. Feel free to hop over there when you have a minute and subscribe. We're going to have discussions kind of like this, where we can talk about old stuff. And that's on actual physical media.
Yep.
So, yeah, just like I talked about, this trilogy is just golden.
Yeah, I mean, what we have here today is we're going to talk what, in my opinion, to me, this is the top tier of MCU phases 1 through 3 when it was the MCU. You can jockey around which is the best a little bit in here, but this one is, to me, I won't say it's my favorite. I don't like to put labels on things like that because my attitudes and moods change from time to time, but I love this movie. And like Jed, I have a few small criticisms, but I don't have much. I am always taken for a glorious ride with this movie. We take it to the end of the line.
Yeah, if I had, it's hard to say like your favorite and everything because it with superhero movies and origin stories, you know, you got that beginning one, and then you got one where they start rolling with, you know, cooking with grease, and then you got the ending. So I like this one for like they just open up and you can explore the world and everything. So I think that would be my favorite, Winter Soldier. But if I had to pick a favorite kind of origin, it would be Iron Man, or a favorite first in a way. And then Infinity War is just my golden goose right there.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
this
combination or that little kind of mix and match trilogy, Iron Man, Winter Soldier, and Infinity War would just be a good night to watch.
This is the MCU when it was the MCU. When during that period of time, this is what I said. Okay, I get out of bed and I go to the movies for this stuff because even back then I went to the movies like once or twice a year, and it was to go see an MCU movie. Everything else I waited for digital or then Blu-ray release, that kind of stuff.
I was both in the Army and college at the time when like most of this kicked off. So like it was a highlight of the week, the weekend, get off work, get out of class, and go to like the midnight showing, which they used to have on Thursdays or Fridays, Friday at, right away. Like we'd get in line. I was in line for Dark Knight in college. That was an amazing experience. And you're just sharing all these stories with each other. And now we do it online.
Yep. And it was fun. And that's what I'm missing right now. Before we go any further, hail and howdy to everybody across the chats. We are happy to have you here with us this Saturday evening that you've chosen to join us, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We hope you're having a good time. Hit those like buttons, subscribe to the channels. Links are in the description below. And if you haven't done so yet, in my chat, pinned at the top of the chat, you have basically 36 hours now, roughly. Actually, no, 12 hours, less than 12 hours, less than 24. I could do math sometimes. Less than 24 hours until the chat choice first quarter for 2025 movie poll is closed. And we need you guys to vote because we have a tie right now. We have a tie. We need you to go in there if you have not voted yet to choose what Jed and I will watch next weekend. This is your chance. Now, once again, no matter which one of these two wins, because they have a significant lead, unless suddenly a bunch of votes rolling out of nowhere, it's going to be one of these two movies that are currently tied. We're going to win. Jed and I are going to win again. We are not going to be forced to watch dog shit this time. It's going to happen eventually. You sons of bitches, when there's more of you out there, you will make us watch something truly horrible one day. I know it's going to happen. But for now,
we got Lagados always trying to get us to watch Flesh Gordon.
I mean, don't give them ideas, but what kind of genre or what would be horrible to you?
Oh no, it's not horrible. It's just like
specific movies more than genre.
Yeah, it's specific a movie. It's like, wow, we hate this movie and we don't want to watch it.
I see your. I haven't voted yet. I can take away that.
Something like Jurassic Park 2, like The Lost World.
I would be angry at that. Yes, I'd be angry at that.
Like, I would never watch that without a reason for it.
Yeah, see, there are movies that I will never ever put on this show unless this particular feature where we put the choice in the hands of the chat. That's the only way these certain movies will ever get on the show. There are movies that I have blacklisted. I was like, oh, I'm never watching this shit if I don't have to ever again or at all. So it's a way. It's a thing. It's going to happen. We do it once a quarter. This is the first quarter of 2025. Now, our second time doing this. Last time we ended up watching Equilibrium, which is a fun little nice normal movie. We had a good time with that one. And either way, the two winning right now, which one everyone wins, we're gonna win. We're gonna win. These are two fantastic movies, so it's gonna be a good time. So you guys have until tomorrow, the end of Roundtable, to put your votes in. When that happens, we close it up, and then Jen and I will prepare to watch it for next weekend. Anyway,
we'll prepare. It's going to take a long time to prepare.
Yeah, because I don't own either of those movies on my shelf at all.
I
don't know them, do I? No, I do have both of those movies.
I just voted now. I voted for the movie I recommended.
Uh-oh.
No, I didn't do anything for the tiebreaker.
Oh, okay.
Dom, you're supposed to not continue the tiebreaker. You're supposed to
break the tie, man. Break the tie.
Where can you find
cause chaos? I want to cause chaos.
Link is in the. I pinned the link at the top of my chat. So if you need to, link is there, or it's in my community tab. It's still there. You can scroll down; it's still there. Anyway, all right, let's get started.
Well, if I could slip in here real quick, slipping it in. I just want to do a special shout out to someone who's in my chat over on Hollywood Scholars YouTube side. Who's here? We have Jen Sylvie Saska watching us right now from the Rippaverse team watching us. So let's hope they're not embarrassed by our take.
I don't care anything. I apologize.
Winter Soldier is a manly film.
It is very manly.
It's a good film.
I apologize for nothing I ever said. Anyway, okay, so let's get going. Okay, so the year is 2014. We are deep into phase 2, ladies, of MCU, and we're having a great time. And we've just gotten through Avengers, we've gotten through Iron Man 3, and then here comes Winter Soldier. And if you're kind of in the know in terms of lore, comic lore, you know what's coming. You know Bucky's the Winter Soldier, you know all that jazz. Now, here's my little story. I've told before, but you know what? My channel, I could tell it again. Okay, so movie comes out. All right, movie comes out. Even though I said I go to the movies back then, I was so movies, I would wait a week. I'd let the crowds die down so I could have a nice, comfortable experience.
Big fan.
Shut up. My story. Anyway, so I wait a week.
Cozy for Adam.
I wait a week, and at the same time, there was a little show called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. running. And it was coexisting at the time. This is season 1 and sort of season 2, where they were still trying to work with the MCU proper. Well, anyway, here I am, season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 1. And I'm sitting there watching. Okay, I'm excited. I'm having a good time. And I hadn't seen Winter Soldier yet. Well, goddamn show spoiled the twist of Winter Soldier with Hydra being S.H.I.E.L.D. And I just sat there. I remember saying like this. I was like, you mother! You spoiled the movie! I was so pissed off that they
did. They didn't have any spoilers, any previews, any indication it was going to go right off the movie in any kind of way.
None.
I was watching same thing. I was watching it probably live or the next day. I remember that was like the last show that I was really watching every week, and at least in that time when it wasn't all streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was watching it, and I was paying some attention. But that really grabbed my attention and it was Garrett, right? And then it was the two.
Mm-hmm.
I'm forgetting their names. It's been so long, but yeah, that was an incredible scene. But
I just like I was just like, you spoiled the movie. Now I went into the movie knowing what was going to happen, and I still loved every second of it. But I hate spoilers. I hate them with a passion, and I don't, and I hate people who do it without respect of people who may not see it day one, maybe even waiting 48 hours. And I think it was really cavalier of Disney, ABC, MCU at the time to do your season finale on the premiere of the movie, not realizing, hey, you know what? People aren't going to all go see it Friday night. Some people are going to wait at least 72 hours, 24, 48 hours over that period, 3-day period to go see it. But you just spoiled the twist of your movie in your TV show. That's a companion to what's going on. Rotten, miserable. And I hated them for it.
I could definitely see you assuming that they wouldn't do that because earlier in the season, didn't they have a tie into Thor the Dark World as well? But that one was incredibly subtle and just kind of, hey, those events are happening.
It was basically they were on cleanup duty after the battle in London. And that was it.
Yeah, that doesn't spoil anything important. Just you kind of expect there's a lot of damage to clean up after a Marvel movie.
So by
huh?
the girl, I can't remember her name, the Asgardian warrior girl.
Lady Sif.
Sif. Lady Sif did show up.
But she showed up like a couple episodes. The thing is, she showed up after, and that episode aired like at least a week or so later. It didn't air when Thor 2 came out.
Yeah, like there wasn't you didn't need to see either one. Well, you didn't. You'd be okay without one or the other, but with the Hydra reveal,
it's kind of essential to both stories.
It is the twisting point because we don't get. And now let's get into the movie. We don't get the reveal where Steve and Natasha go back to Jersey and go to the camp and find Zola in the computer. We don't get that reveal till halfway through the movie. A proper reveal. They actually lead up to it. You don't know what's going on. You don't know. Yeah. You don't know that they're Hydra yet. You don't know anything. But then you get the reveal as Zola does it. That Hydra has always been growing within S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, I got a note on that. It's just that buildup in the whole movie. I had a constant sense of something isn't what it seems to be in every character, in Samuel Jackson's scenes, in Steve's scenes, as he's like, trying to figure this stuff out. He's bickering with Natasha about, her doing a side mission and him doing the main mission, and compartmentalization. Yeah, there you go. And then that whole sense with just building and building, and then you, like you said, you get the Zola reveal, and you and I talked about this. I think it connects to
going down the line.
Taking out Stark's parents, and then the series of events that we learn about later with Civil War and Baron Zemo and all this stuff.
Yep. I mean that's how you build tension. That's how you build anticipation, and that's how you do a mystery. That's how you properly put all the pieces in place. Because at that point, we knew that Robert Redford's character, we knew he was a bad guy because we saw him talking to Bucky in his living room.
Yep,
we
that
saw
was powerful.
him, and he just ganks his maid because she walks back in.
That's just cliche. That's have your bad guy kill someone for no reason, so he's a bad guy. Cliche.
It probably gets some people.
I mean, it's a trope. It was clearly like, will the audience know that he's really bad, or will they try to sympathize with him? Well, let's just be safe and have him murder some random lady, and that'll clear it up for them.
Well, she's not random. She walked in and she's...
Well, I mean, like, she's not an antagonist, or like she's not in a fight with him or anything like that. Just an innocent.
Yeah.
That's... Have him kill an innocent so they're evil.
NPC.
Cliche.
She was an NPC of the movie.
An NPC.
All right, so let's start with this. Let's talk about the characters. Let's talk about the introduction of everybody into the movie. I think this is a fantastic reintroduction of Steve post Avengers. Because at the end of Avengers, he just rides off onto the motorcycle. We don't know what he's going to do. Well, now we learn right away he's joined up with S.H.I.E.L.D.
He went back to work.
Going back to work because both Peggy and Howard Stark helped found this thing, and he wanted to help their vision, their desires come to fruition of providing peace and security by doing a little dirty work on the side, but not too much dirty work. Point is, you get a great introduction beginning with setting up a running gag for the rest of the two phases of the real MCU. On your left, we get introduced to Sam Wilson. Sam Wilson, who's Falcon. Let's just put that.
Fantastic Falcon.
Yeah.
He's great in the role. Great character. I would have loved to see a Falcon movie in Phase 3.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
Yep. Like
a little late in Phase 5.
Revealed a little bit at a time. And it's like a lot of us probably knew he was going to be Falcon, but it was cool to see the progress. of
The
how it
little
kinda got
hints.
there.
Yep,
And then
yep.
Cap and Natasha going to Sam for help.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it just was perfect time. He's
Well,
like, and here's what I did.
Fits.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cohesion, and this film, for its minor plot issues that we'll get into later, I think characters is probably where it shines through the most, because a lot of people say this isn't just the best Captain America movie, it's the best Nick Fury movie, it's the best Black Widow movie, it's the best Falcon movie, obviously. And
We can
yeah,
say
it just
that now with so much that
Mhm.
happened between then and
Yeah.
now with all of their characters and the lack of character development or the regression in a lot of them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could say
And-
that this is all of their best movies.
It is because they get the most screen time to do stuff. I mean, this is really this is the most Nick Fury you get in a movie. It's the most everything in a movie, and you get lines like the last time I trusted somebody, I lost an eye. That line meant something until we found out a tiny little
when adults
mutant
were running the
alien
show.
kitty scratches his eye. Although you know what, that's
So
fan
sad.
fiction.
Yeah.
It's fan fiction. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. Didn't happen.
All right, yes, a Bucky's best movie too, chat. All right, yes, it's Bucky's best movie too.
Yep.
I love Bucky's character arc in this film. There's great stuff in Civil War as well, obviously on his redemption arc. But yeah, just
but
some. Well, with the
real
limited screen
Bucky.
time that we got.
We
But
got real Bucky, real Winter Soldier in this. He's
Mhm.
been a mopey mope ever since then.
Yeah,
pretty much. Well, I mean, a spoiler alert for a new movie. He's somehow a congressman now, or
Yeah.
on his way to be
Mope,
one.
mope.
We're not
Oh,
talking
that's
about
spoiler.
garbage. We are not bringing that
Yeah.
garbage in. We're here
But-
to talk good movies.
Positive.
While we're talking about characters, there's one character that I have some issues with. It's even one that I mentioned. You mind if we go into him just real quick?
Sure. I could circle back to Steve. It's fine.
Oh, sorry. I that was a few transitions ago. Sorry.
Ahead.
But even though I said this is the best Nick Fury movie, I have a big issue with Nick at the beginning of the film, mainly his reaction to the Avengers. Now, after the events of the first Avengers film, it's completely logical for him and S.H.I.E.L.D. to go, we need radical change to be prepared. I mean, it kind of fits in with their whole using the Tesseract because they met Thor in the Avengers film. That progression made sense. But instead of going, let's build 3 helicarriers for planetary defense, his thought process was, aliens could attack at any time. Let's build 3 helicarriers that can kill any human we want in a moment's notice.
Oh wait, was
That feels
Nick's-
like the wrong response.
I got a question. Was that his plan, or did he know about the algorithm, or was that going to be
No,
more?
yeah, they talked about it can read the terrorist DNA. We can figure out who's going to be bad before they commit the crime. He doesn't say algorithm, but he knows that there is a mechanism to kill people before they start doing
I didn't
anything
think
bad.
about that. If that's true, then he's more of an enemy, and maybe that's why you have this,
exactly. That's where I have the
Well,
problem, where
at
there's
least
that
mindset,
disconnect.
because in the Avengers, he wanted to use the Tesseract to make weapons, and
Which makes
Avengers
sense.
Called him out on it, and you'd think that he would have learned from there and had some character development, but no. If he's actually in on the algorithm stuff, then
He disagrees on targets. That's about it.
Yeah, but then there's going to switch to a different commander or director that's going to say, now we're targeting
Mhm.
X group of people. Like, he should know better. And
Yeah,
so
that's
Alright,
exactly what I'm
I
talking
was
about.
under
And
the
it does
impression
tie
he
into
only knew about the
thematic
helicarrier.
issues and
Well-
like the freedom versus control issue that we can
That's
talk
the
about
thing.
later. But yeah, besides that issue with Nick Fury, he's great the rest of the movie, figuring out things, being suspicious all the time, faking his death. That is all in line. So yeah, besides that, Nick Fury's
But,
fantastic.
All
in
right,
this
so you
film.
bring that up though. Let's. I'll come back to Steve later. You bring up a great point. Now that's kind of one of the crux points of this movie. What's too far? Sacrificing security for peace, because that's that we I know we talk about all the time. We don't want our real world intruding on our movies, but it's okay for the theme to be put in there because it is the theme. How much are you willing to sacrifice for your protection, for your sense of peace? And it excuse me. Damn. Excuse me. How it starts off where Nick Fury is on the side of obviously prevention. Somebody's got extra audio going on here, so I hear another voice talking. All right. I'm gonna mute everybody
I'm
for
muted.
1 second.
Me.
All right, Dom,
Yeah,
it's you.
it's
Dom, whatever you're watching, lower there or something.
I don't have anything playing.
It was coming from you, so I don't know.
Oh.
Don't ruin the show, Dom. Anyway, but that's kind of the crux of the movie is what is too far? What is safety? How much are you willing to sacrifice for your safety? Are you willing to sacrifice your freedoms for safety? And it delves to the idea of it's a kind of a morally gray issue. I mean, what's too far? And the thing is, the movie, as a movie should, puts it in your hands to make your decision for it, you know? I think.
And one reason I like Civil War is because it's a direct, or not a direct, but it comes from this movie where Steve sees how different people with different agendas.
It's a sequel.
Yeah. It's basically, well, it is a sequel. Yeah, you're right. It's number 3. But Iron Man didn't go through all that in that same situation. So he doesn't see it from Steve's perspective. As well as, the rest of them. That's why I like, Civil War, because they actually, all the characters have a reason for doing what they're doing or switching sides or.
And then you have the issues that come out of Age of Ultron that added into it. There's a whole, it's like they actually built a story.
Yeah, they're connected. Unlike the last 5 years, 6 years, whatever it's been.
And all you need to do
throwing
is
stuff out there.
watch one movie and then the next one to know what was going on. You didn't need to do another 12 hours of homework to catch up with garbage. So it's an interesting point. And whenever I watch the movie, I always find myself thinking, and maybe it's because I've lived through these times, and I think to myself, I'd love to be able to stop something horrible from happening before it does, considering loss of life and this and that. But then I think about the idea of, but am I willing to sacrifice, for lack of a term, the rights of the Constitution, at least in this country, that protect
your location,
us?
Your property, your voice, your intellectual property.
Yeah, so it makes you think, and that's why I think this movie is a step above a lot of the other MCU schlock, as it were, where it's just in your face, let's have a good ride. The movie actually wants you to think about a pertinent topic. And that's what a good movie does. It makes you think about something. And it doesn't necessarily give you an answer, because like you said, we move on to Age of Ultron and we move on to Civil War, where the answer is still not been given. Where do you fall down? How far do you go? We go further and talk about Sokovia Accords and this and that. The issue keeps evolving, because that's a real thing. There's never one answer, because the issue's always going to evolve, become and transform into something different, because other factors will be in play. But that's for discussing the other things. Thing is, though, so this movie is fun and entertaining because it actually works with your brain. But it's also fun and entertaining because these characters, we are at this
honorable mention to Agent Carter, the blonde one. What's her name?
Emily Van Camp.
Sharon
Carter.
Are the ones next door's neighbor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Going into continuing working on the neighbor.
Yes.
With her laundry at the same time. Yeah, that's like a Friends episode.
Well,
I was just saying that she hears Steve's speech that he gives to step up and everything like that.
Captain's orders.
And then in Civil War, she gives her speech about at the funeral, which was spot on, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I going back to the whole, like, it makes sense when you connect the dots, and no one's saying the first 3 phases of the MCU were perfect.
Oh no,
but it made sense.
Hell,
and lately it hasn't been making sense.
There are things in this movie that are imperfect, that they planted seeds for, and in my opinion should have gone forward and worked with. And I'll get to that as we go through the characters, stuff like that. But as I was saying, though, what we have, though, is what makes it very easy to get into this movie is we are now 5-6 movies into the MCU at this point, maybe 7 if my math might be a little off. But these characters are established. We can dive right in. It's very easy to introduce Sam, but we can now have Steve and Nat dive into a mission. And the opening gambit with the retaking of Lemurian Star and all that stuff, that is some of the tightest action sequences you're ever going to see in an MCU movie.
The choreography was great.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't tell what was green screen and what wasn't, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so it seemed very seamless. They cared about the combat stuff, which I think
Steve
during
just
that time, that
mauling those guys,
2014
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I point to this scene for two things in particular, especially these days when a whole bunch of people seem to think that Captain America is a Batman type where he doesn't kill, he's like Spider-Man, restrain and arrest. He was a soldier. He was decimating Yazidis in Germany 100 years ago. He's decimating these folks. So the idea of, John Walker killing someone being anti-Captain America is asinine. He kills these people, and it's okay because he's a soldier.
You have walked right to my next point. If you notice a point, and I noticed it the other day, because I was actually watching it, not just going, I was actually watching. At a certain point, when he is meeting up with Natasha, you could see blood on the shield.
Mm-hmm.
It's
not the first time
on the shield because he was just smacking the shit out of dudes with that thing. Dudes died from the impact of that shield.
100%.
Yes.
And he was getting beat up too. Like, by
he
that
took some
one dude,
damage.
That one-on-one match,
The
It's
Batroc.
like,
I love that one-on-one because that guy wasn't overpowering Steve. He was just so much quicker than Steve, and that's where he had the advantage. Like, it's a fight scene that made sense.
Who is that guy again? Like, is he
Batroc?
in future movies?
No, he is.
I thought he had a name.
He's Batroc.
He cameoed in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but that doesn't count.
Or there was something that he cameoed
But
in.
he is a real Marvel character. I've been told that in the past. I just don't remember who or what he really is. But he's a legitimate lower tier antagonist. But but it is a great scene because in that moment I thought you were more than the shield.
Exactly.
Puts it off, takes the helmet off.
Another reason why Steve Rogers is Captain America, like we've talked about in many different ways, but that's another just like hint, and it just another call it an Easter egg or something that connects the dots to like he is worthy. He picked up Thor's hammer, like all the things. He is Captain America. It's not a mantle you pass around like a hot potato.
Yeah, it's the shield doesn't make Captain America.
It's not the shield. It's not the serum.
It's the character.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the other thing that I love about the sequence, and this I remember the first time watching it, because I was apparently, at least in my friend groups, one of the few people who Captain America was my favorite Marvel character before this movie came out. A lot of people came out of the Avengers thinking that Cap was a bit of a joke, seeing him as lesser than a lot of the other characters, wondering why he's competing with characters like Thor and Hulk and Iron Man, obviously better than Black Widow and Hawkeye from Power Levels. But yeah, a lot of people came out of that movie thinking he doesn't deserve to be a member of the Avengers. But the moment that fight scene in Winter Soldier happened, the moment he kicked that dude, broke him in half, and then the body like rolled into the ocean, that's when people went, oh shit. And it was just very vindicating for me.
He's not effing around, and I'm okay with that. I'm on board. Let's go.
And the thing about Steve is that he's more than that. Steve has a mind. He's a strategist. He thinks. I mean, you got to remember in Captain America and the First Avenger, that's a montage of a period of time. It doesn't take place over like a couple of weeks. It takes place over months to a year. And Steve planned missions. He executed strategy. He's a thinker. In Avengers, he's the one that strategizes how to contain the Chitauri in Manhattan, not let them break out any farther.
And it's two things: it's strategy, and then it's communication and leadership. And it's basically getting what you have. You come up with a plan, strategy, tactics, and you got to communicate that in a way that your colleagues, your soldiers, your subordinates can understand, and then do their individual job. And so that it takes a lot. And Jed, like you said, I had friends that we saw the first couple of movies, and they're like, oh, Captain America, you like him? I'm like, yeah, like I could go on, and that's what we're talking about right now. And but that first Avenger film did a lot, and some of it, people just like the Iron Man and Hulk, and for whatever reasons, and it's subjective, but yeah, I was all on board with that first Avenger, and then rolling into Avengers.
The bad thing about the first Avengers movie is that his costume, there was just something off about his costume.
It was cartoony.
Yeah,
it was Whedon-y.
Yeah, it was too streamlined. It didn't have making it a helmet and not just a mask he pulls over. That's significant. Giving it a little more texture, a little more oomph, like with the stealth suit in this one, and then we return to his OG one, which is important. at the end there. It's very important when he goes back to get the OG suit.
Wait, you're saying it's a stealth suit to begin with in this movie?
That's what we. That's
first
what people call the suit he
Then
has.
what
I
would you
was
call the
Winter
one
Soldier.
in Infinity War?
That was his tattered one from Civil War.
Yeah,
that was
it
that was
was
I
just
think I've heard
damaged.
that.
Yeah,
yeah. It was just
Because it
just
still had
been
the
washed.
star, but no
Yeah.
color.
Yeah, it just it had been,
Yeah,
been
that-
washed in like
it'd been
years.
modified. He like grimed it up, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what they went into this when they gave the suit more character, and then by the time you get to everything else in the later movies, they worked it out. That's like my only problem with the Avengers suit.
Mhm.
Him, there was something wrong with
And
the helmet.
I was fine with. Well, he needed a suit. He went to the OG Captain America
Yeah,
museum.
that's
and
important.
Yeah,
grabbed it
That's
from Stan Lee.
Stanley.
But that is Stanley. We love the cameos.
I
But
I missed those.
that is one of the most important scenes in the movie, because if you're going to go to war, you need a uniform. And it's not just that. That's the uniform that also connects him to Bucky. So that's why it's also important, because that's the one that
good point.
somewhere
I
in the
didn't think about that.
recesses of his memory that
Yeah.
Bucky will remember.
That's like a marketing deal right there, or psychology. That's a good point. Because
Yeah,
the fight might have been different. It was just Captain America in jeans and
Mhm.
a Reacher style, type deal. And
Well,
but instead, it's a uniform.
I love the moment when Cap at the very end of the film takes off his helmet or his mask to really connect with Bucky after the helicarriers have been stopped. Because and this might be my headcanon, I might be reading into it, but I imagine that a very important moment in Bucky's life was the moment he fell on the train, and that's what Steve looked like in that moment. The suit with the helmet off, probably one of his strongest memories that's trying to fight through the memory block. And so Steve is evoking that in nearly every detail.
Yeah, good point.
That's a great line. That's great. I
didn't
never
think
thought of
about
that. That's pretty good, because they do show that earlier in Bucky flashbacks, the falling off the train. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Russos did that on purpose. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But so we have this reintroduction of Steve, and it's just a badass introduction too. And I'll bring it up now. Usually I save it for the end of the show, but I must bring it up now. You get a taste right away of how epic this soundtrack is. This is one of the best soundtracks in all the MCU. Especially leading it to the theme of it. I'm not going to hum it. Sometimes I'll hum it. I'm not going to do it today, but it culminates in that sort of thing, because there are my two favorite scenes in the movie is first the introduction, the opening gambit, but then I love the escape from Triskelion, where after the elevator scene, and they try to stop him, and he just goes through the elevator, lands on the shield. And then they try to stop him. He's already out of the garage. And then he comes out of screaming out of the garage on the motorcycle. And the theme is just pumping through there. And then with just himself and his shield, takes out a Quinjet.
Well, that's when it
that
changes,
moment.
right? So that's all the lead up gets to a certain point. Probably you could call it the elevator scene, when he realizes what's going on.
Yeah.
And then, like
That's
you said,
awesome.
the soundtrack, the score changes, and now we're in a different, now the movie's taken off.
But the thing about that whole scene is it's a hero's crescendo with that music of what he does to take out the Quinjet and move around that. It's heroic, and it invokes, and you're just going like this. Yeah, oh my God. Of course, and it starts with, all right, before we get started, does anybody want to get off?
Yeah.
And that is just, and
that's the
This
writing.
is a
that
great
I get.
line.
That is
Yeah.
those moments like that, and that and the build
you
up.
don't need to say, okay, bad guys, I'm gonna beat the crap out of all of you if you don't get off
If
of
this
here.
movie came out today, it would be something like that. It would
Some
be
cringe
that
line. Yeah.
juvenile
Yeah.
level
Yeah.
of writing, or writing by committee, or
It would be Whedonized, as we
studio
mentioned earlier.
approval, or whatever the deal is that holds them back from opening up. these
Whedon
characters.
humor would have ruined this movie. So would Gunn humor. The Marvelization of this movie. Luckily, Marvelization wasn't really termed quite yet. It was more after Guardians came out. But can you imagine what we would have gotten in this movie
yeah. I
if
was
it
just-
came out today? Like, same basic idea. The execution would
cheap
be.
humor.
Because this was
Yeah.
Russo brothers' first one, right?
Yep,
Mhm.
it was.
Which
Yeah,
a
this
lot
is-
of people thought would be funny because they had just come off of Community. They were known for Arrested Development as well before that, directing all those. And you don't watch Community and think, these guys will make a great spy superhero movie. That's not a logical assumption to make, but they made the transition well.
And
But
you
as-
bring. Go ahead, Dom. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, going back in comedy, I feel like the funniest scene in the movie is when Sam is escaping from that building, and he goes, "I'm on floor 41," He goes, 41. And he gets in the helicopter. He goes, I said 41. He goes, well, they don't put the numbers on the building.
Well, that's the thing.
This is the way
the
Nick
point.
Fury says it.
The humor isn't slapstick. It's not cheesy in your face. It's dry, and it's to the point, and it's not laugh out loud. It's basically, yeah, it's good. It's good.
Well,
that's
yeah,
the kind of humor.
It's a whatever they call it, tension reliever, or it's a relief from kind of what's going on. I can't remember who was talking about it, where it's like it's tough to make a battle scene for an hour straight. You know, you got to break it up. You got to understand kind of what's going on. So yeah, I heard that it's better to just kind of slow that stuff down.
And
it's also organic. Like the line I like to point to is one of the ones that people say is being the most funny. Is that near the climax? How do we know the good guys from the bad guys? If they're shooting at you, they're bad. Like Steve might not even have been making a joke. Like it is the logical thing to say in that moment, but it plays it off so well. Like it's a great organic humor.
Yeah. I thought that was great, and it made sense because and it's a good question because like who do we shoot at some and not others? You know, but yeah, if they're shooting at you, they're bad, and they don't want to decimate. They don't want to Daenerys. All of
there's good people working for this organization.
Yeah, but they do make a point.
Good people out there, and that's why another good thing about Cap when he gives a speech is if you're a good person, be a good person right now.
But Steve makes the point. Note that the inside crews and the strike teams are likely Hydra. So Porter, and when they're on the carriers, Steve is just annihilating those guys left and right. And I want to point this out. You watch Steve in that fight, that is the same Captain America combat we've seen now for 3 movies at this point. First Avengers, and now this one. Shield physics, bouncing, ricocheting, punching guys, kicking guys, sometimes shooting them if he gets his hands on a gun. He didn't get his hand on a gun in this one, but Avengers, he was using a gun on the helicarrier fight against the insertion team that led by Hawkeye.
The first time we saw him in his suit in the first Captain America movie, he was shooting a pistol.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
coming in the door.
He's ganking people left to right, but he's in your face, tanking guys, knocking them around. And what is Sam doing? Flying around, using agility, shooting guys, not directly engaging, because that is Falcon's weapon power skill set. Not running around, punching guys and slicing them with his wing.
And that's the thing about changing the mantle too. It's like these are 2 different people. Like, why would you expect two, 3, however many to be the same Captain America? That's why it the more I think about it, the more I just it dilutes it so much. And giving it second scraps to somebody else who makes a good Falcon or makes a good whatever other superhero. Be yourself.
All right, so with the characters now, we get so easily reintroduced to Steve and his moral dilemma over all of this, that he still feels like a fish out of water. He's still trying to catch up. And then you insert the other characters. You get Natasha, Black Widow, in there. And her introduction now, we have seen her now for at least 4 movies at this point. And she's seamlessly introduced. She's now in full-on SHIELD mode. It's not just semi-adventure SHIELD. This is full-on SHIELD. She has no problems doing anything, this and that.
Well, she's always been SHIELD when she was working for Iron Man.
But now she's full-on SHIELD.
But yeah, she's not undercover or anything or trying to be part of a team. She's just this is baseline.
She's
over.
And now you get great, fantastic chemistry between the characters, between Steve and Nat. They're like Frank says in the chat here. They're back and forths. That's humor Dom mentions. It's light, it's airy, and it's conversational, and we automatically connect with it. Leading up to eventually, is that the one with the lip piercing? Yeah, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that.
Well, no, it's funny because they haven't had a lot of time together. I think they had a small little conversation on Avengers, and that was it. Nat spent more time with Bruce Banner, with Tony, with everybody else than Captain America to this point. So this was their time to hanging out at the mall and
they don't have to
escalator.
They don't have to do explicit exposition for us to understand that they've been working together since Avengers, that they've developed this relationship. Like, one of my favorite moments of seeing, like, oh, they've been a team for a while now, is on the Lemurian Star. Even when they're fighting with each other, when Batroc throws the grenade and they jump through that window, she immediately shoots her gun and breaks the glass for him. Like that is just flawless teamwork without communication. It's a very good way to seamlessly introduce
They had trained for
exposition.
that in some kind of way, either talking about it, planning,
experiences,
or just time on tension and just doing the training stuff for a long period of time, either at Shield or in other ops that we didn't see. Either way,
now
it was show don't tell.
You get and you get great show, because in that moment, and that's a key moment after they've had their playful banter, this and that, and where they're used to work each other. Steve is pissed because she didn't communicate with him and it screwed up his end of the mission. And she goes, "Okay, yeah, it was my bad." And he says, "Yeah, damn straight it was." You could see that it actually hurts her in her expression that she effed up. And now here's where I want to take the discussion. I think that their relationship is fantastic in this movie. And agree or disagree, I felt like the Russos were laying the groundwork for a Steve Natasha romance, and that then Whedon just said, "Oh, F that, I'm not gonna do that."
Well, and go to Bruce Banner.
For no reason.
These weird, awkward conversations about uterus and removal and
I could definitely say that the Hulk romance is a bad choice in Age of Ultron, but I hope that the Russos were not planning a romance. That's my opinion. I don't think that Black Widow and Cap should get together. They
have in the comics. They've done it in the comics.
But in the movies, I love their friend relationship. It's built on a real life friendship. That's why it feels so organic. But I think it would have diluted a lot of the other stuff, made it be like, oh, it's so sexual. And it made the kiss joke even funnier, where it's just friends kissing. And then Endgame, they're the two people left supporting each other.
Yeah,
and it's not.
It does change things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good
I think it's way more powerful.
It might have gone more CW
because she doesn't
relationships. Because then if they're together, then that's all they can really do.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they break up, then it's that weird tension. Either overtly.
Exactly, it would feel too CW.
I disagree. I don't think it would have said CW. I think it would have been a slow, proper burn. You light the fuse in this movie. You carried over a few movies. And then when you get to Endgame, they're kind of all they have at that point. And it would have been a natural progression. And it would have saved us the awkwardness of Sharon Carter in Civil War, which goes nowhere.
That is weird.
They had more scenes in Civil War, hooking up or talking and doing their
it's
thing.
more weird with the revelation that she's actually a Carter, because we don't get that in this movie. So their flirting, I think, is fine. But yeah, when you find out she's Peggy's niece, it's just weird. So yeah, I don't like the Sharon romance
up until when he went under the ice. But then in Endgame, when he goes back and now he's actually in whatever timeline.
Yeah,
he had a relationship with her. That makes it weird. But before that's a thing. Peggy. Did they even hook up in first?
No, they didn't. No, they never had.
They
that
kissed
dance.
once.
Yeah, they were professionals the whole time that liked each other and said, "I'll save you a dance."
Yeah.
It was building up, but it never got there until
I think
did it in Endgame.
For overall storytelling, just to break outside of this movie for a second, which we've done a good job staying within the confines of the movie. I'm proud of us today. So we have a problem with that sometimes. To break out of the confines, I think it would have been better. I mean, Nat still dying in Endgame, that's still a powerful moment. That it works. It would have been more powerful if, Steve had a relationship with her. If it hadn't been the silly Hulk crap, would have been more powerful than to not have him go back in an alternate timeline and spend in an alternate timeline a life with Peggy. That we could have avoided all of that, but they wanted to do that for some reason, and that's part of where there needed to be a better maintained cohesion of the overlying relationships going forward. And I think if they had tried to do certain relationships different, we could have avoided the messiness at the very end that I think happens, despite the fact that, and I'll say this over time, I like Endgame warts and all. I still enjoy it to this day. I'm not one of those people who go, I like it less and less every time I see it. No, I enjoy it warts and all every time.
Definitely got lots of warts, but it's fun.
Yeah. Oh,
it's a closer. It
Yeah. So I feel that they should have gone the relationship route. It would have made more sense. It would have avoided the awkward Hulk romance thing with Banner. that son's getting real low, big guy. It would have avoided all that garbage.
Mhm.
And it would have, because that's why in this movie created a grounded relationship, starting as friends, grow to something else. See, Jed can appreciate this in terms of writing. Sometimes that's not always a choice, but it is a good romance path sometimes to start as friends or start as a sort of allied companionship where you've been through the shit together and you're maybe not friends, but you've seen so much that then something else takes root, at least on one side, and the other person know it. It's a route to go in romance. And I am a hopeless romantic. We all effing know this by this time. We know this. And I would have wanted to see that because I think it would have been a good story to tell within the confines of all the relationships. But that's just me. And I feel like the door was open. Do we at least agree the door was opened?
Yes, you can definitely,
Yeah.
They definitely hinted at it.
It might not have been intentionally open, but I do agree that the opportunity was there. The foundation was there.
Yeah,
I would say
it was
I'm
kind of a choice
with Jed.
between Sharon and Nat, in a way.
Mm.
You could look at it both ways throughout the movie.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Sharon, the thing with Sharon in the movie, that was just more for, I kind of like you. You're that's me getting back to the dating pool. But then it gets complicated when she's Agent 13, and then gets more complicated when she's Sharon Carter. Even though they did have a relationship in the comics, these are all these women are people that Cap did F in the comics. They're all women that he legitimately had relationships with. I just wish they'd actually made a choice and got on that horse and rode it into the finish line instead of basically having Steve bounce around and have nothing until the very end, where it and let's be honest, the whole alternate timeline, and I keep saying that because a lot of people don't to this day get that, the alternate timeline Peggy thing, to this day, people harp on it. It's created nothing but controversy since it happened. And I would have liked them have not had that happen. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
right,
just real quick with that alternate timeline, I actually guessed that Steve was going to go back in time in Endgame, in between Infinity War and Endgame. Not how it happened, but I envision. I want to see if you guys think this would be a way to get that ending, but still keep Steve's character intact. I thought he was going to do the snap, and it would destroy him near completely. So someone else would use the individual stones to wipe his memory and make him, the normal small Steve again, and then send him back in time to be happy. And this is after Peggy's founded S.H.I.E.L.D., had her other family, and then they just kind of go off and live in the middle of nowhere, her job taking care of him. That way it doesn't matter if it's a new timeline or not. I feel like that's more, like he's the guy who makes the sacrifice play.
For me, that would be in line with the theme
I just feel like that would work better for his character. I mean,
again,
might be contrived as hell, but
stepping outside the confines of this movie, I was the guy who was thinking they were going to go the comic route from the actual Infinity Gauntlet saga, and since they had all the players there, they had both Spider-Man and Nebula there. They could have gone the actual route where Peter gets the gauntlet off and Nebula gets her hands on it and just wishes, no snap, just wishes that everything reverted to back before Thanos killed half the universe, and didn't do that. And that
undoing this time skip.
Yeah, because that's what happened in the real comics. That's what happened. So Peter gets the gauntlet off, if I remember correctly, and it lands in Nebula's hands. And Nebula says, "I wish none of this ever happened." Essentially, and it goes back to everything, and then nobody remembers everything at all. It just reverts. So I wish they had done that. Again, it would have avoided a lot of controversy. And because I'll say it again, Dragon Ball time travel rules don't work. They're the messiest kind of time travel rules you can make, because it just gets convoluted and people don't understand it. They don't understand it to this day. They still all think that Steve went back in time and ignored everything and just effed Peggy day in and day out. That's all they think happened. They don't understand he went to a legitimate different timeline, lived a life there, probably averted all the crises because he knew were going to happen, then came back in that moment as Old Man Steve to the prime MCU timeline with a fresh shield from that timeline that he was in, and then started a bunch of nonsense. So it is that is what happened. And some people to this day don't understand that. They don't, because you don't watch anime. Watch anime and you understand. Anyway.
I'm not a big anime guy.
Well, you should be.
I've heard the theories. It's just we all come up with better ideas than they actually did.
Yeah, that's the
in
problem.
A lot of these IPs, and it sucks but yeah, like some of our theories are way better
because they're rooted in lore. That's why our theories are rooted in lore.
And care. You know?
Anyway, so back to this. So we've talked about Nick. Let's talk about Bucky. I think it's a fantastic way to the way they do the Winter Soldier up until the reveal. Even though when you see him talking to Robert Redford in the shadows, you could see Sebastian Stan. Right?
Yeah, you tell who it is.
You can tell right there. It's
I
spoiled
couldn't
right
tell.
there.
Well, they named it the Winter Soldier. Anyone who Googles, hey, what the hell does Winter Soldier means, has it spoiled. So, to be fair, most people kind of knew it was Bucky going in unless you were an ultra normie, which is fair. But I mean,
I had an idea.
Most people knew.
I knew the comics. I knew the show as well. But I gave them leverage to if they're going to change something.
But they stuck to it, and
it helped to like understand the reveal, make the reveal.
It was done so great, though. Bucky as a Winter Soldier is menacing. He seems unstoppable. He it's just so deliberately merciless, not evil, just merciless.
Yeah, his score,
absence of everything.
Song, I heard this interview about how they made it. It's a screaming, and then they played with the different stuff and made it just this.
Do you know the scream's actually a real, like an important scream? Do you know where the scream came from? No. It's the remix scream of Bucky falling in the first Avenger. That scream he does as he falls off the train. It's that scream that they use that as the core.
Shit. Wow.
You're right.
I didn't know that.
I forgot about that.
I didn't know that at all.
That's a great detail. Like that's why this soundtrack stands up above and beyond, because they went into detail. They cared. It feels like a creative process was involved instead of just kind of making the same thing over and over again. There was a lot going into it.
If I used to write papers and briefs and all these kind of things like research and everything. If you want something to hear while you're working on something really dull, like listen to the Winter Soldier soundtrack. Like it'll just keep you going, and it's like
listen,
like it's like audio coffee.
Jed can appreciate this. I have borrowed these tracks for my own writing because they influence me in certain ways. And that's how to me, that shows a powerful soundtrack. It's so good, I can take it and I can separate it from its proper scored scene and readapt it something else because it's so good. It has such beats, it has such moments that I can overlay an entirely different scene on it and make it, or character, put a whole new character in their identity and still make it work. That's how great this track is. I love it. It's phenomenal. And Bucky is just, he's a monster, especially his full introduction. I mean, we get him for that first brief second during the Nick Fury chase scene, which again, we could break that down in all kinds of awesome detail when they try to gank Nick Fury.
Except for the lightsaber at the end.
That's really quick. Yeah, that happens really, really fast.
That's awful. I hate the lightsaber.
It's that blowtorch is really quick. Not a lot of time there. That is one of my hiccups in the movie. Next to it's one of my few points to take off alongside the path that was not taken with a relationship. That's a moment like, wait, he did not have enough time to cut that big a hole that thick and escape.
And why can't Bucky just jump down the hole?
Oh yeah.
And Nick Fury's injured. He's probably limping. Yeah. He's 10 seconds away from you, mate. It's
a little
next scene. Yeah.
But it's a powerful entrance, and then his reintroduction when he supposedly fully ganks Nick, and Steve gives chase in an epic moment because that's a super soldier busting through windows, busting through walls, chasing down another super soldier. That's fantastic. But so everything Bucky is great. Even then the reveal, Bucky, I don't know you. I'm trying to kill you. It just works so well. I love it. It's fantastic.
There's one famous criticism of Bucky in this film, and I want to get your thoughts on it because I think there's an easy justification for it, but it's out there enough that we need to address it. So a lot of people say, from especially Natasha's line, most people in the intelligence community don't believe he exists. He's a ghost. He's in and out of there. Basically describes him as the ultimate stealth operative. Just this assassin that you never see coming and you never see leave, and just this walking death. But in the film, we never see him do anything like that. He's always dropping into the middle of a city block and annihilating cars and just bombastic as possible in multiple scenes.
I think
I know what it is, but...
because the the restraints are off at this point. Hydra's making their move. They don't care anymore. Doesn't matter. That's my answer.
I agree. I think it makes sense. I would have liked to see a little bit more of the stealth operative, maybe.
And they're so close to winning.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's it matter once you kill everyone?
Yeah.
I agree.
Go.
No, I 100% agree. That is the justification. I just wish we would have seen stealth
I understand.
Bucky at some point.
I understand what you're saying, but my answer is that it doesn't matter anymore at that point because they're like, oh, this is our end game for lack of a better term.
That could have been a Disney Plus show. I keep saying this, like for certain really cool ideas. If we just had a 6-episode thing of Bucky being the Winter Soldier from
and set up the
present World War II to Winter Soldier time.
Well, as long as they set up the super soldiers from Civil War a little bit better, I would be all for that in a perfect world. Because I don't like how they were just kind of casually thrown in there. But yeah, giving time for that to
conversation for a different movie. Conversation for that movie. We'll get there.
Yeah, that'd be a good one too.
Yeah. Well, we have kind of broken the theme. This is our first MCU movie we've done on this show, and clearly it's not the first MCU movie, but MCU is a special case where I think doing them out of order, however you want, is fine because
they're popular enough.
Yeah. We're not going to go down the line because I'm not doing that. No, we are not going to start with Iron Man and go down the line. Not going to happen.
It would take too long.
Yeah,
it'll take 5 years.
Yeah. So here's my other. All right. So when it comes to this cast, I think 99% great job. My only problem, honestly, Robert Redford. I think he was miscast horribly in this. He doesn't now in real life he's evil. I'm gonna say that he's involved in a lot of sketchy shit with Can and all kinds of stuff going on. Dude's a sketchy dude, and of course he's a commie Marxist. So there's that. But he's full on.
I don't know anything about him. I saw his shoe movie in the ocean, and that's it.
Robert Redford is a full on commie Marxist, just like all of them. But he's really been out front for a long time. Point is though, he doesn't scream mastermind villain to me in this. That's a problem for me. He just doesn't. And his matter-of-fact way of doing the whole thing, I just don't buy it. And also, there's a problem early on, right before the elevator scene where he goes to have Steve come up talking about Fury's death. It's a pretty quick jump from and this is where it's a failing of the movie. They jump too quickly from him wanting to find Fury's killer to suddenly flipping the switch. Oh, I'm bad guy. We're going after Steve.
Oh, yeah. It's seeing those scenes back to back. Like, oh, okay, I'm your friend. I like Steve too. Because he lied to us. And then just full on villain mode. I 100% agree.
That's one of the few flaws in the movie for me.
That was quick.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to say
well, I guess he was just suspicious of like he thinks he's hiding information from like Nick Fury stopped at his house. Like he's not, but yeah, it is kind of quick. I see what you're saying. Yes,
it feels too forced because because then when you go to the conversation in the elevator, it's nothing personal, Cap. Oh, it feels personal. Everything from that point on, we realize, like you guys said earlier, something is now building. We're going, but it's too quick in that moment. There was
the only reason I can say to the otherwise would be Robert Redford realizes that Steve is lying. So through his training, through whatever, through technology, whatever they got, he could. Because Steve does lie.
Oh yeah,
to him in that scene, and so I think Robert Redford picks it up and he said, "All right, we can't." I think he knows that they can't turn Steve Rogers.
They were never going to turn him.
Just
I
like
think they know that because
so then that's why. Okay,
him going after Cap makes sense. Like being like, oh yeah, he's an uncontrollable variable. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
He's publicly doing villainous things.
It'll be an obstacle.
The transition is poor to me though in the story, the movie. It's literally a 30-second transition. We needed one more scene to get us there, I feel.
Well, one version of this sequence that I've thought of is Bucky is a super soldier, right? And you can capitalize that in your fight against Steve on a more stealth level. Because, Steve is an uncontrollable variable and he's going to be hard to kill. And if you're going to kill him, you're going to need to turn public perception against him. So have Bucky kill Nick Fury in a way that seems like a super soldier is the only person who could have done it. and frame Steve for it. That way he can be like, hey, he killed Nick Fury, so I'm totally justified in hunting him down now. That feels more like a Hydra way of going about things, a little bit more subterfuge involved, utilizing Bucky's skill set to their advantage. That feels way more intelligent.
That works. It's like I said, they just needed to do one more thing to get us over the finish line of, oh, they're bad guys. Not telling us they're Hydra yet. The Zola reveal, like we started the show with, that's a brilliant reveal. To have Zola be the one that tells it all right in that way, in that fashion too, with the clips and the video and all that kind of stuff. It's great. But we needed one more thing to know, okay, these guys are not kosher. There's something wrong with them. And that's like my one of the few faults. It's one of the few things that is my deductions for the score tonight on the movie. Let's see. You guys have anything you want to bring in? I'm
just wondering who would turn to Hydra and win. You know what I mean? So that'd be a cool thing to break down, is like who got in right away, who made the switch, just recently, and then who's been at the longest, have a little bit more Hydra lore in the MCU canon.
That would have been interesting because Zola makes it appear when he does the breakdown that he planted the seed and it grew over the decades. Yeah. And not all of S.H.I.E.L.D. is Hydra, because there are that moments, which are great moments. Of course, Captain's Orders, it's great moments, and other people who are trying to get in the way of the Insight crew gun them down. And at one point where when Steve and Sam have started their assault on the carrier, a crew of Quinjet fighter pilots are walking out and saying, we're the only cover Captain Rogers has. And then Bucky comes out of nowhere and just annihilates them in gruesome, kicks one dude into a turbine.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Kicks one dude into a turbine. It's a massacre right there. And I always feel bad in that moment. It's like, oh man, Steve was going to get back up. And then no, Bucky's like, no, you're not getting anything. I'm going to kill all these guys.
I was gonna say about Bucky, like he just feels like a total like one thing like a movie, like the villain you need a great villain, and like I look at him and like he's a big deal. And like just that scene when he fights Captain America, like that's just like one of the best hand-to-hand combat scenes in Marvel, I feel like.
Oh, you're right. Like, both of them. The street fight and then on the helicarrier. And also because in a sense, at one point, Steve is both not holding back, yet holding back. Because you see moments. At one point, Steve, full strength, lifts him off the ground with a chokehold with one hand. But then other moments, he's holding that because to the point where before they go into this, Sam has a conversation with him. He might not be the kind you can save anymore. You have to put down. And Steve, he wants to save his best friend. He's going to save his best friend to a point later on where it's detrimental to his entire storyline.
And that scene at the end, like not to get too gay, but it's like that is like an emotional scene when he goes, "I'm here with you to the end of the line." End of the line. And he goes back to reference when he loses his parents.
Yeah, and so we leave on hope that Bucky's changed or can change or isn't fully gone. Or how you want to
great
put
scene.
It's a great ambiguous ending for Bucky.
And it works because also you realize the whole thing, we bring it back. He went and got his original suit, which can't take the punishment that his modern day suits do. Because his modern day suit probably would not have been breached by a modern day higher caliber gun that Bucky was using. Because back then it could deal with World War II munitions. But current day, it couldn't handle a higher caliber gun. His stealth suit or his Avengers suit, he wouldn't have been shot 3 times, and he would have been injured.
I don't think there's any implication that his suits are supposed to be bullet resistant.
I think it's like I think it's like probably the highest form of Kevlar you could probably get.
Yeah, it's probably something, but it's very flexible. I can see his later suits being that way, but I think that might be a stretch to say it's bulletproof.
I didn't say bulletproof. I just said
a lower caliber, like handling the lower calibers.
Yeah, but in World War II, we saw his suit take on that kind of firepower somewhat in World War II. I'm just saying, to me, that fight goes the way it does because he's wearing his retro suit, which is not equipped to deal with modern weapons technology. Which, I mean, it also doesn't he get stabbed during that fight too?
Yeah.
And they make a point in that in World War II, his suit is knife resistant. It could take a knife hit. I believe in First Avenger mentions that. In this one, obviously it's not it's still a knife, but it's probably a different alloyed knife. Bucky would probably using the best freaking alloy Hydra could put his hands
It's an
on.
alternate suit. Howard Stark shows him some chainmail. It's like, you could wear this. It'll stop a knife, but what German's going to come after you with a pocket knife?
Okay, yeah. Okay, good point. See, I was trying to remember the sequence of events. That point is, I still think that his retro suit, he's more vulnerable in it than he is in a current day suit. That's what the point I'm trying to make. And Bucky is able to get the upper hand because of that. And in the end, even though Steve has the win, Steve got the win. Bucky is pinned. Bucky's hurt. Several times, Steve had him in several basically end move chokeholds. Like he could have killed him a couple of times there. But he chooses not to because he's trying to save him. And then he says at the very end, I'm not going to fight you. He drops the shield. And then Bucky, it's a great moment when then Bucky jumps on him. You are the mission. He's repeating, you're the mission, you're the mission. He keeps trying to punch him out until then Steve says, I'm with you to the end of the line.
Yes.
And he falls
That's
through.
a
And
great
like you said,
scene.
there's the hope. And see, Bucky's doesn't have so much battle damage that he's going to fall. He's able to hold on, and he's watching him fall. And then we see that Bucky pulls him out. And where is he on this? And then, of course, it leads to the stinger where Bucky's in the museum, the final stinger, and he walks up and he sees himself in there. And suddenly we wonder, okay, where is he going to go now? And then we got 2 movies before we get there. But
back when end credit scenes actually said something.
Yeah, back when if you want to hear more about that, we'll talk about that tomorrow on Roundtable. We have a whole part of the Brave New World story to talk about with their stinger. It's retarded. So the whole final sequence of everything in this movie with the revelations, I mean, the growth of the characters or maybe not so much growth, but showing that Steve, no matter through everything go through, is still Steve Rogers. He's still the guy, the small, scrawny dude who took the injection to be a protector. He's still that guy. Natasha, at the end of the movie, has evolved to a point where she's not ashamed or afraid of her past anymore, because all her identities are burned because she released everything on there. Nick Fury abandons everything to go dark, to do some sketchy shit, which we thought was going to be cool, but we learned later in fake MCU post Endgame it was all bullshit and crap. Wasn't fun. And all that stuff. Sam, he's got Steve's back. I do what he does, I just do it slower. Ooh, that's a line, isn't it? Isn't that a line? I do what he does, I just do it slower.
That's what I say. Anything you can do, I can do slower.
It's meaningful. All the stuff in this movie is meaningful because they were still building a proper story narrative for everything that ended in a certain way, whether you like it or not. But this is, I would say, the tightest, one of the tightest MC movies out there. There's very little loose threads. It's all displayed in a logical, chronological, well-executed storytelling fashion. I mean, Jed, I know you have minor grumbles here, but the Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 progression, it's solid in this movie. Proper build-up, proper execution.
Oh yeah, when it comes to the acts, it's 100% very well executed. There are plot issues that I do want to get to that I think are actually quite large. But when it comes to the acts, we can feel the transition. You know, it's done well when you can feel the transition, but it's not jarring. You're like, all right, this is when it makes sense. And this film does it well with the setup, the ultimate reveal at the end of the second act that Hydra's real, and the final action set piece. It's very tight, like you said. I can't think of any wasted scenes necessarily.
No.
There are scenes that I would have done differently or whatnot, but every scene served a purpose. There doesn't feel like a lot of fluff or any attempt to pad the runtime, which is impressive because it's well over 2 hours, I believe.
Yeah. Don't feel it, though.
Yeah.
You don't feel it. All right, so you had some problems. What are the problems?
Well, there's 2 things I mainly want to talk about. I'll talk about the more obvious one, or like the one that normal people will know what I'm talking about. I don't like the scene with Zola. I like the idea of Zola still being around, the idea of him being the one who rebirthed Hydra inside of S.H.I.E.L.D., building off of real things that happened, like recruiting German scientists after World War II. I like a lot of that. I feel like it's way too big of an exposition dump. I'm okay with exposition like the Hydra reveal being there. It's just way too much. And the explanation that, oh yeah, he can reveal it all because he knows Steve's about to die and he's just delaying him, that only works to a certain point for me because Zola, more than anybody else on the planet now, even before he became algorithm super genius, but more than, especially now, he is the person least likely to underestimate Captain America because he saw all those great feats he did in World War II. Now he's got an algorithm on his side to say, this dude is badass. So assuming, yeah, he's going to die, so I can tell him whatever I want, doesn't quite work as well with him, I believe. And the more logical route is, yes, delay him, but you can do that with misinformation, Hydra's strong suit, with lies, with there's plenty of other ways that I think Zola would have done it in this situation to still delay Steve without revealing too much. Because him just being there, I think, is a good reveal that Hydra is still part of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, he's in a S.H.I.E.L.D. base. He's under a S.H.I.E.L.D. base. This Hydra scientist is down here, and then Steve can make the connection. If Zola's down here, is Hydra still around? Like, make it more a coming to the realization rather than, I fooled you. It feels cheap, and I think there's better ways of doing all of that.
Having done this with you enough times, I understand where you're coming from because I understand how your mind works at this point. But I love it. I think it's great because I think the whole scene structure softens the exposition dump by seeing the clips, by showing the murder of Howard Stark, by showing how Bucky is interwoven into all these things. The Winter Soldier, the one who's the pressure point, who makes these things move over, who alters world events. I think it works as an exposition dump. I think I don't feel. It doesn't even feel like an exposition dump to me. That's where I am on that. It just feels like it's a well choreographed villain monologue, and I can forgive Zola, to your point of being the one who should not underestimate Steve, because Zola thinks he's won, and every good villain in their moment of triumph in comics will monologue to their detriment. They're gonna monologue. I'm gonna monologue.
I still hate that though. It's so cheap.
But it's true. It's how it works.
It's true.
It's how it works. You know this.
But should it?
All right, go ahead. Thoughts, guys?
Just like I was okay with the misdirection. It could have been a lot better. It could have been a more thrilling end. Or sorry, I guess I'm thinking about Civil War now. But yeah, the Zola stuff. Just going back to that, it's fine to me. It could have been. They could have, like I said, you could have understood who was Hydra early on and who did the behind the scenes in a quick little montage kind of way or whatever it is. But it's a lot to take in that all of S.H.I.E.L.D. or most of S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever has been Hydra for X amount of time since. Like, how did Zola get in there? You know.
I still think it's okay to have the reveal of Hydra in there. There was just so much extra information that we didn't necessarily need. And I like that idea of Steve being like, this is a S.H.I.E.L.D. base with the secret lab that Zola's in, and he's doing secret stuff with this USB. Oh my God, it's Zola. Is Hydra, like, making it more about an intelligent reveal. But you bring up Civil War, and I think that's an excellent example at the end of the film when Zemo reveals what he's been doing the whole time of a villain exposizing for a reason, because he's trying to elicit an emotional response in Tony. So all his exposited information, his evil plan being revealed, is meant to get a reaction and accomplish something. So it's part of his plan to reveal. I think that's a perfect example of
talking
justified
to the audience. Yeah, which
I love how that played out from an expositional standpoint.
Yeah, that's what made me think of it when you were talking about that earlier.
No, I got what you were saying when you were like, oh, I was thinking Civil War. It's like, I know which scene you're talking about.
All right, what's the other thing you want to bring up?
It kind of ties into something that Zola said, but the theme of the film, when it's watered down or like brought down into a few words for most people, is freedom versus control or security. Freedom versus security, which is a big thing that Hydra's been dealing with even since back in the day in World War II. But that encapsulates the idea very well. I don't think it's very well executed when it comes to Hydra's plan. when Zola says, we learn from the mistakes of Schmidt that you can't take away people's freedom to accomplish security in this great world that Schmidt envisioned. They learned from those mistakes, and that's why they became the stealth organization inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. But the plan of the film isn't utilizing any of the major things they did. Zola said, oh yeah, we've been breeding fear. We've been preparing this world for people to give up their freedoms voluntarily. But
they're going to go right to mass murder.
Exactly. The helicarrier plan in no way capitalizes off the last 70 to 80 years of what they've been doing and actually reverts back to Schmidt's way of doing things, because he was going to blow up a bunch of cities. So I
heard a theory that they had to do it now because they were sensing what was coming, and it could have been what the Infinity War part of that and stuff like that. So it's like it was whoever was running Hydra, whatever, head of the Hydra. It was
supposed
had
to be Robert Redford. He's supposed to be
maybe connected to Loki.
That changes things enough that they would have had to say it. That's as the headcanon, I can see it working, but yeah, that would need to be included in the film. But yeah, they say we learned from what Schmidt did. We went to secret things to make people give up their freedom, and then all of a sudden they're like, we're gonna implement this plan we've been building up to by not letting people give up their freedom, just murdering everyone who won't give up their freedom, and doing what Schmidt was going to do the whole time. It feels inconsistent to me. I hate the helicarriers. The helicarriers don't make sense with Nick Fury. They don't make sense with what they've portrayed Hydra as. They don't make sense in freedom versus security, because they don't provide security. They just kill enemies.
Here's the way I see it. And again, there's no real evidence. I'm trying to just operate with what you're posing right here. It feels like to me that once the helicarriers are up, it wasn't originally going to be one mass murder. It was going to be stealth murders using that thing.
Well, they still need the justification. What are they going to tell people?
Right now, they go to the mass murder because now I think they rush the agenda at the end there. It's like, we're rushing to the finish line. Now we're going to go mass murder instead of stealth, killing people one at a time. And there is an era in that whole thing, because remember, this is Winter Soldier. We still have Age of Ultron, and then Civil War. At one point, and I don't get, and I thought it was cool when he did this, but now looking in the whole thing, killing the key people. Now, one of the things you're going to do is when you're watching the helicarrier get its targets, a lot of MCU characters are in there. I always spotted Tony in there because that was before they started having everybody cross-pollinate in their movies.
Doctor Strange.
And he mentions Stephen Strange at one point, and it's like, wait a minute, he's still just a regular Stephen Surgeon Doctor Strange. He's not.
And that's why I
Sorcerer
think
Supreme
they predicted certain people, and then I think they also were predicting, like you said, headcanon, but predicting the Thanos, or whatever. I mean, because they're already experimenting on
they got the glow stick of power.
On the staff.
They got the Mind Stone.
We find that out in Endgame that Robert
Age of Ultron, that they had the staff the whole time.
Yeah, they had the staff the whole time, and that's how they made, the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver kind of deal with that, the experimentation. But then also Robert Redford wanted the Tesseract. Remember, we find out in Endgame when they went back to the Avengers moment. So it's like Robert Redford was Hydra back then, and they almost got their hands on the Tesseract, which would have been the same as S.H.I.E.L.D. having. But instead, Thor insisted on bringing it back to Asgard or wherever. Went from there.
Yeah,
Asgard.
I mean, so that's a problem. There's retconning going on then now. There's retconning.
Yeah, and that's another.
Which is another knock to Endgame.
Yeah.
Well, there's retconning in this movie with Hydra being involved. Some logical leaps, like yes. Robert Redford tried to get the Tesseract in Endgame during the events of the first Avengers film, but I've seen no legitimate justification to explain why they didn't get it in the 70 years that they had it previously. Why didn't they do anything with it in the 70s? The only explanation I heard is, well, Howard Stark didn't let them have it, and that's why they killed him. And then the chick who the alien from Captain Marvel wouldn't let them have it, and then Nick Fury wouldn't let them have it.
It's retconning, and actually, and they're using Howard Stark.
Those are so thin,
and that's actually wrong. They killed Howard Stark for super soldier serum. because that's what Bucky takes out of the trunk in there.
Well, but yeah, Hydra doing that. But I don't see it. What's his bucket? Howard doesn't know that Hydra exists until the end of his life. So who is he keeping the Tesseract from? How could they stop? He can't stop a super secret organization.
With Hank Pym, they could have and maybe you know this too. Like the original Ant-Man was a completely different film. They had different directors on it. It was it's a Frankenstein monster itself. A lot of people don't know that because
that's why I don't like it.
Comedy and whatever. But
it turned out all right. But Edgar Wright's version would be much better.
Yeah, you're right. And then also, but if they centered around Hank a lot more, the original Ant-Man, I thought that would have been more of a payoff because then
would have made sense.
His dispute with Tony Stark, and
you could properly introduce Pym particles. You could properly do Ultron. That's part of the problem with Age of Ultron is that they give Hank Pym storylines to Tony. Just because Tony's already established and they haven't taken the time to properly establish Hank Pym. And of course, they decided to go full old man.
And Bruce Banner, their brainchild or whatever.
Yeah.
The Bruce Banner part doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because that's not his
Jarvis.
That's kind of the problem.
Ultron.
I mean, that again, we're breaking the confines of this movie. That's the problem. No, it's fine. It's fine. It happens. Trust me. We've done this enough times with multiple series.
Well, when you're using Infinity Stones in all these in some way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But what I'm saying is that they don't, after Incredible Hulk, they didn't know what to do with Bruce Banner. They don't properly use him. They use him okay in Avengers because they brought him in for gamma science. But that's his specialty. You get away from that, you're not in his specialty anymore for the rest of the series. So, all right. I mean, basically, essentially what Jed has brought up is that there are some retcon issues in this movie. And when you take a microscope to them, they don't quite line up. And you're right. It doesn't make sense without an extra scene to go from what I believe would have been using the carriers for periodical stealth assassination attempts to full on, we're going to kill 20 million people right now to bring 7 billion under our heel. You're right, Jed. It needed.
I think we're all saying the same thing. They should have had something. And like I said, my theory was we have this reason that we have to launch this now. Now let's have some kind of dialogue and saying what the coming threat is or something.
Because they were going to kill the president too.
In the frickin'
Matthew Ellis.
The coming stuff. Like you could have had something with that saying this is Robert Redford. This is why we need to act now or something like that.
And that could have set up Age of Ultron a little bit talking about Deceptor, but they wanted to save that setup for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Now, you know what they and you know, maybe with the mass assassination, they were going to blame it all on S.H.I.E.L.D. And then that because when the helicarriers are launching, it's still S.H.I.E.L.D. to the public. It's not Hydra. So if they had just killed 20 million people, including Tony Stark, the president of the United States, Doctor Strange, so many
they'd need to have a rival organization that would take control then.
It would have been blamed
and then I got
on
a question,
S.H.I.E.L.D.
like, is this supposed to be like NASA? Like, is a PR out there? Is the media covering this? Or does the public know at all that they're launching
Well, they would have seen it. There was no way to hide it.
But it wasn't publicly talked about before the event happened.
Yeah.
But
so
like NASA,
my guess is
people prop that up.
My guess is looking at the evidence of the movie, everything would have been blamed on S.H.I.E.L.D. as a rogue government agency that had too much power around the world with this working with the World Security Council, all that kind of, because those World Security Council people were there to be murdered. And they were going to it was all going to be tied together. And then I think that would have been the avenue through which Hydra then takes control, saying, look, we're here to protect you from these rogue elements, and infiltrated the entire world government organizations that have been built to protect you.
And I'm trying to remember S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But because I watched all of it. The earlier seasons were a lot better.
The first two seasons are great.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
it was really interesting and everything like that. And they did Inhumans better than the Inhumans show.
Well, that's not difficult.
That thing was supposed to be to introduce the Inhumans, but they
were supposed to have their own movie too, maybe a show, and then completely cancel it or whatever the deal was. But anyway, that show was great because it like added to more about Hydra. So it had different heads of Hydra doing different things. So in that way, it kind of answered my question from earlier. They dove into different leaders of Hydra, and they each used different stuff.
But they did it wrong.
Mind
They
control.
they were fractured factions, kind of.
Yeah.
Well,
You-
right at the end of the
you're-
movie, Baron Strucker says, let's sacrifice other heads of Hydra than do the Gorka Hydra. We're going to continue doing our thing. He's willing to sacrifice other parts of Hydra so that they could finish their experiments with the Mind Stone.
And then you get where Hydra came from. It came from Inhumans, planets, whatever like that.
No. Well, yeah.
It is jumped the shark at that point. It's so jumped the shark at that point.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, man.
I am a completionist, so I had to see it all.
Oh,
through.
yeah. Oh, I watched it.
And I
I'm
don't
like,
know too much about.
No,
comic
Hydra
lore
is
when it comes-
just Red Skull. Red Skull is Hydra. And
Oh,
always
really? That's
was.
where it started. Was
in original.
Yeah, there's no interdimensional father of Inhumans.
Hive is a villain from Marvel, but he's not Hydra. He's not the imp. He's not the creation of Hydra. Red Skull was and
So they
always
took some
has been
liberties.
Hydra. They took some major liberties.
Got it.
All because they couldn't use the word mutant at the time.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
you
didn't
know
have the rights yet.
That's why
I
they
think I did
went.
hear
With,
that. Yeah.
that's why they went with the Inhumans, because at the time they hadn't spent $72 billion yet to buy Fox Studios, so they didn't own the word mutant. So they went with the Inhumans, which they did own.
It almost just feels like they could do more with less back then. You know.
Yeah.
Whether
Great
good or
restraints
bad.
actually breed better creativity a lot of times.
Yeah, but now they own every Marvel,
and now they're bastardizing
except for
their
the
own
Hulk.
shit.
And that's the main problem is you can't put Hulk name or face or whatever the deal is on a movie because Universal holds the rights to distribution or
Just
certain
like
things. And
doing anything Spider-Man requires Sony, because Sony will hold that thing to the grave. They
which
will
is
never give Spider-Man.
fine. They've done great in the past, sometimes and sometimes not. But Universal has never done anything with the Hulk,
No.
in their own creative kind of way.
But going back to what you were saying, Adam, about your interpretation of their plan, that could have worked very well if they had set that up of, all right, after we blame this on S.H.I.E.L.D., we're also in control of the government. And so now we're going to take over the government and be like, all right, we need to prevent that from happening. That could have worked very well with the blaming it, the controversy.
They had senators like
war.
Gary Shandling in place and all that kind of stuff.
They had everybody in place. It was going to happen quick.
They needed to explain that a lot more, but that would be a very good way to justify it. And another...
Yeah, I see it in the movie.
Another way to fix a lot of the retcons in the movie is make it seem like Hydra has been a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. since the beginning, but it's really struggled to recruit people because it would be very difficult to recruit people regardless of S.H.I.E.L.D. existing or not. And it was maybe the first Iron Man movie or one of the subsequent movies that really catalyzed people to be afraid of the changes in the world, which broadened out their recruitment pool, giving them the resources to do this plan as soon as they could, making it so that Hydra never really had control over the Tesseract because they were too small a part of Hydra for all those years.
Yeah.
Like
that would be another good Disney Plus show, like explore Hydra in S.H.I.E.L.D.
But they can't because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. butchered it.
Well, some people say that that's not canon to the whatever 6 months.
Yeah, there's competing interpretations.
It's all messed up. But anyway, all right. I think we're good. We're not going to.
I just want to say, like, for me, like when a movie is good, I can pull 3 like different major items from it, like really quick. That's kind of unique to its own film or superhero movies or wherever the case is. But yeah, so I'd say like Cap's speech to like the average person that's sitting at a desk.
Yeah,
like that scene was just like crazy tension building because you didn't know what's going to happen. Did Frank Grillo gonna shoot the guy? Is he gonna do whatever? Are they all a part of? Are they all gonna just turn and become a part of Hydra or not? Like that was awesome. And then the elevator scene.
Yes.
And then I would say Nick Fury in the van in the SUV, just like doing his hardest. Then he's finally like, "Get me out of here!" Because each one kept leveling up and fighting back and forth. And like you said, the weirdest part, he needed a way to get out of it. So I guess it's like his shark spray for Batman. He's just like,
all right. So, Drew, were those your final thoughts? Because we're gonna go final thoughts.
Yeah, those are my big 3. Just like kind of unique, kind of just held their own moments, and that's why like this movie is just so high up there. Like, yeah, I'd call it my Empire Strikes Back, if you will, of the MCU.
All right, Dom, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts, like it's just an awesome movie. Like it had a great villain, you know, great storyline. It's just the characters were all, you know, great. Like, you know, it's just, you know, it's nice and simple. You know,
It's a simple formula.
The
you follow
you
a
could-
simple formula, it works.
The average person could say what the plot was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can they do that about Brave New World?
We barely could do it about Brave New World, and we know what we're talking about.
In an elevator speech, say what Brave New World was.
And if you think about it, what's his bucket? The leader has a similar power set to Zola.
The algorithm. Well, that's just another way to talk about how Brave New World, and we've tried to avoid talking about it too much because we don't really want to for this show today.
We're supposed to be positive here.
It bastardized a lot of elements from both Winter Soldier and Civil War. It made it stupid. Jed, final thoughts.
Wait, can I say one more thing? Yeah, like just like it felt like like a Captain America movie, like Natasha or Sam, like didn't overshadow him. Like it was
It's
movie
Captain
centered
America
around
movie.
him. Yes.
Yeah, it is a Captain America movie with a Captain America storyline that was born from the previous Captain America movie. God, wow, how novel is that? You plant the seeds for a story and have it blossom in the next movie in the sequel.
And yeah, for Civil War, I'd say that's Cap's movie. You can decide if it's Tony was right or Steve is right, but that he was right all along. Yeah, he made I'm not going to go into that right now, but that is Captain America's movie. Yeah, it's Avengers.
Yeah, he pushes all the momentum of the plot.
Yeah.
You're seeing his point of view first. Sorry.
All right, no problem.
Yeah,
Jed,
just want to make that point quick. Yeah, go Jed.
Well, we're talking about that. This is an incredibly cohesive trilogy. They all fit together so well, unlike a lot of other Marvel movies that just kind of feel scattered and whatnot. But for those of you who haven't watched the show a lot, I really endeavor to separate subjectivity from objectivity when I talk about movies. Subjectively, I love this movie. It is my favorite Marvel movie. I can sit down and watch it at any time. I have a great time, and it's a hell of a lot of fun, and it makes me think, like Adam was talking about at the very beginning of the stream. It's simple and straightforward enough that anyone can enjoy and understand it, but it still asks great questions and has interesting concepts that leave it to the audience to make their decisions on the more social commentary side of things, not the political commentary, the social commentary side of things. And I think that's all done very well. The characters are so very, very strong and vivid in this film. Besides Nick Fury, a little bit inconsistency. No one's done dirty. No one feels like they were disrespected or was shallow and flat. I think those plot issues, though, that I mentioned, especially with the thematic inconsistency, the Zola scene, and just everything with the helicarriers, is a problem, though. So that'll be reflected in my score. It is a flawed film, but one of the most enjoyable that Marvel has ever come up with, and still significantly better than the average Marvel film, even of the previous phases.
Can I make a quick point? Like, I was actually hoping to sort of open a whole rabbit hole here, but because anyone ended. But how do you feel about, like, because we always have a problem with like typical Marvel movies where like these 100-pound chicks can beat dudes up. How do you feel with Natasha in this
Perfect.
movie?
Yeah.
Every moment, every fight scene she's in, she's using a tool or technology or her skill set that's been established in previous movies. There's nothing wrong with doing a head scissor takedown when you've locked the dude's neck between your very fit thighs and ankles and you're choking him out and then driving your electric shocks into him. Or taking a crowbar and beating the crap out of the dude as you walk by him while shaking your very fine ass. You notice in that moment, as she crowbars him on the Marine Star, she shakes her ass. She shakes that ass. Come on. No,
I didn't have a problem with her. I did a good job in this movie.
And she doesn't overpower Bucky. She gets her ass handed to her.
Ass kicked by Bucky, which makes sense, but she still keeps going. And then she uses her mind on the cell phone or the radio or whatever she had.
And then tools with the grenade launcher.
Even while she's fucked up, she could still outmaneuver him, at least enough to to buy some time.
Yeah.
Till Steve can get there or whatever the next scene was. So she's a survivor. Like, she didn't have to take over Bucky. She didn't have to get completely destroyed by Bucky. Like, it's just, she used the skills that she has.
Natalia Romanoff, the Black Widow, in her MCU appearances, has both the tools and the skill level to get the job done, and they accurately portrayed. She's never shown in the real MCU phases 1 through 3 to be doing something she shouldn't. Like if you go back to Avengers when she's fighting the Chitauri, she's using every single thing she has. When she runs out, she gets Chitauri's shock stick and is using that. I mean, she uses weapons. She uses her skill. Yeah. She fights as someone her size should. She goes for weak points. She's not trying to wrestle down. She's not body slamming. She's not punching dudes. She's going for throats and knees. She's completely accurate. Nothing wrong with it. And ScarJo looks like she's fit and capable of it. She's not 4'10" midget widow doing hallway fight scene that not even.
I can't remember if we said it earlier, but she was instrumental in deciding to hit the key to show all of Hydra Shield to the whole world, to the internet. And then Robert Redford even said, you got right in your ledger. You're going to open yourself up too. She thinks about it and then she still does it.
Yeah.
And that's the evolution of the character. Avengers so well.
And it's her evolving story. They were telling these character stories so well in these phases because they had a place they were heading towards and they knew what they were doing.
And now that I think about it, she probably didn't know all the information that S.H.I.E.L.D. had on her too. So she could have thought that they could have known about the Red Room, the girl, the Task Mistress, you know what I'm talking about?
Her family.
So she could have known that could have got put out there too. But
anyway, all right.
Obviously, it didn't happen at that point.
Yeah.
But
all right. Normally, it's my week. I would normally go first with my score, but we have guests. So out of 10, Dom, what's your score out of 10?
Okay.
Well, you're the first one on my list here, so I have to.
Yes. So out of 10. So I really, like I said, my second favorite superhero movie. So go 8.7.
8.7. That's okay. 8.7. Drew, out of 10.
What's the criteria exactly?
You're score it however you want. Just out of 10. Your score, however you want
for any movie.
I mean,
MCU.
Any movie anywhere, however you want to do it, because Jed's gonna give his score, his objective score, which is gonna get yelled at by the chat.
Oh God, Jed.
We all do it differently, so however you want to do it is
okay. You gotta understand, Jed's the objectivity, I'm the subjectivity. So
I just say like it's the highest it can be up there compared to other things. So it's a great superhero movie, and it's even just a good movie. Like if anybody, your average normie, your aunt, your uncle can put this on and enjoy it and pretty much understand everything that's going on. You can't say that with other MCU movies. So just kind of like The Dark Knight, it's just a straight up good movie plus a superhero elements as well. And then it stands beyond everything in the MCU, in my opinion. Other than Endgame wrapping stuff up, Iron Man creating the deal. This is like my X2 if you compare it to the Fox universe. It's on that X2 kind of scale. So I mean, I could make tweaks along the way, but wouldn't really take a lot of stuff out. So that's a good indicator. I'm gonna say 9.8.
9.8. All right.
Yeah. Blew me out of the water.
Now, since it is my week, I get to go before Jed. I give it a solid 9 out of 10. I've already said my points. I would have liked to have them go down a Steve Natasha relationship. I think they opened the door. They should have walked through it at least for a few movies and then had them be a post relationship there. I have my problems with Robert Redford and how his character works in this. Sometimes doesn't really work well, doesn't transition well, and a few minor things we mentioned along here. And I acknowledge some of the things Jed have said. I can always acknowledge his objectivity to my subjectivity. So solid 9 out of 10. And now Jed will make the chat cry.
Don't disappoint me, Jed. It's gonna be above a 7 at least.
This happens way too often.
No.
It's not going to be that bad. It's not that bad. But I rate things differently than most people. I try to compare things in the breadth of cinema. And my scoring is usually lower than most other people because I'm considering a lot of things. And the quality of the writing is one of the top things that I evaluate. This is one of the highest scores I will give to any superhero movie. I think a lot of them are too shallow to be given higher
That's
scores,
very
even if
fair.
they're fun as hell. They can be fun as hell, but they're incredibly shallow for the most part
very
as a
fair.
genre. So I think this film is definitely cream of the crop when it comes to superheroes, only beaten out by a couple Marvel movies like Thor 1 and then, of course, the Dark Knight trilogy, or for the most part, the trilogy. I have to give this a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. Hey, listen, you know what? That's good for him. Let it be nice.
At least above a 7.
Be nice.
I
And
feel
there we
like
got it. There we got it. That's it. That's another one in the books. I'm just going to take a quick look at.
My other scores are going to be lower for other things.
I feel like
for
we gotta do
sure.
a Dark Knight review because I want to hear Adam's.
Yeah,
take
you'll
on
have
it.
to make me do that shit.
Don't worry,
Yeah, yeah.
I can make him do it. I can make him do it.
Thank you. All right, Ted, make him do it.
All right. Well,
I'm a Nolan fanboy. Though,
I
so
know.
that won't be a fair stream.
I'm with you.
yeah,
We'll switch roles.
Yeah, listen. No, we've done Nolan movies. I mean,
Inception was hard for you.
Hey, I was fair to Inception. I was fair. All right. Anyway, no, poll is still deadlocked. So, guys, remember, if you're watching this in real time or within the relative real time, next 12, 24 hours, vote on the chat choice poll. We need to have a decision. I cannot be the one to choose this. It has to be you guys. You have to choose it. You've got until tomorrow at the end of Roundtable. We'll be making sure you guys vote then too. Anyway, thank you, both Dom and Drew, for joining us this afternoon, this evening. We appreciate you taking time to join us with this, having a good time. And we thank you, the chat. We love each and every one of you. We appreciate you guys. Without you guys, we don't get to do this. You guys are the only reason we get to continue. So thank you one and all. We'll see you guys next week. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Have a good night or day wherever you may be.